welcome to the Dred Scott podcast. It's me, your host, Dred Scott. Today I got my grandfather with me, who's my namesake again. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Grandpa.
Hello, I'm Dred Phillips. Dred's grandfather, here to answer a few questions.
All right. Well, last time we had our conversation, we kind of got left off on the political side, so I figure we might as well start there. Oh, Grandfather, go ahead and tell me, how would you say you align yourself politically?
Democrat,
And what is a Democrat?
with the philosophy of loving and giving and caring. Basically, that's it.
Just get loving and giving and caring.
Yeah.
And how would you say that the Democratic Party expresses these loving and caring aspects?
Well, as the Clinton administration tried and the Obama administration did pass the CARE Act, the pre-existing conditions in the insurance, the health care problem. This is not something that's going to benefit one individual. It's for the society, the benefit of the society. It's showing love for the society.
So the Democratic Party would be more of a societal beneficial party?
Yeah, for instance, the Trump administration legal department right now, this day, is in court trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which means that millions of people will be without health care. And everybody that gets the COVID, the pandemic, is considered a pre-existing condition. So they're being eliminated daily from the possibility of being able to be covered if they are successful in court. This is the Republican Party.
Okay, so you would say, like, if it was like, say, for a movie script, they would the Democratic Party would be the protagonist and the Republicans would just be the antagonists?
Yeah, that's one way of putting it.
Okay. And because you're not a Republican, so just speaking on your understanding on Republican philosophies, like you said with the Care Act, what are some of the philosophies that the Republican Party has used to, let's say, cripple Black society?
Well, just in this administration here, they just canceled the program where they're talking about the affirmative action and talking about consulting about the race relations and so forth. They're saying you don't need that anymore. Whereas as the Obama administration had in place, where the police departments had to work on trying to do the right thing. If they was doing something that was contrary to the community, they had to go through the Justice Department. The Republican Party canceled that, threw that out. The Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, when he first came in, everything that Obama put in to try to help society as a whole, not just the Black people, society as a whole, the Trump administration have thrown out or have tried or is in court at this present moment trying to throw it out. That's from the Republican side. Obviously, I don't believe that the Democrats is doing enough to try to defend this stuff, but they are doing something.
So is it only with the Trump presidency that the Republicans are attacking Black Americans?
No, it's not only the Trump administration. The Trump administration is the Republican administration, and the Republican administration, just like the Democratic administration, is like a relay race. It's each leg is handed off to the next administration, and they carry it on. So that dog won't hunt what you're attempting to say. So it's a continuous.
Is it a continuance?
Yes.
Okay. And where did the where did this divide come in between the two parties when it comes for specifically for black people? Because this channel we only talk about black people issues.
What did I?
Where that the Democratic Party would be the good guys and the Republicans the bad guys.
I don't remember dates, but it's been some times ago because everything used to be upside down. The Democratic Party used to be what the Republican Party is now. In the Republican Party, it used to be what the Democratic Party is now. Lincoln was Republican.
Right.
And so everything changed around. That's what they called the Dixiecrats. The Dixiecrats was the equivalent of the Republican Party. That was back in the antebellum days. That would be before the Jim Crow and the sharecroppers and all of this came about. And before the Civil War, the antebellum times was before the Civil War. So there was some free blacks and some enslaved blacks. So a very few of the free blacks was helping the enslaved blacks. You got the
Right, but
Harrington.
those are people of political party of a political alignment. But
it has to do with the political parties. It has to do with the political parties because when the Republicans, when the white community as a whole,
right,
was fighting to get their freedom because they was complaining because they didn't have representation. They didn't want to be taxed without representation from the King of England.
Right, but so we didn't have a Democratic Party then. There was only a Republican Party, and I forget what the other party that
I
eventually
that.
transferred
that's
over.
What I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. And that's what they wanted to cut ties with the king because they didn't want to be paying taxes without what they call representations. But when they got this thing all figured out and got it signed in 1776, the Constitution,
mm-hmm.
That's when they separated themselves from the blacks.
But grandfather,
the blacks was there with them, right along beside them. Although some of them was in servitude, that could if they was able to make a save enough money, could buy their freedom. But after they got the Constitution signed, they said no, we got to have some free labor. In other words, we can't survive this thing because we didn't got nobody to work for us. So that's when everything started turning crazy.
Yes, but for our namesake's Dred Scott case, where the judge literally says in the ruling that a black man has no rights that a white man is deemed to respect. So when did either of the parties show favor towards the black people of this country, America?
Well, it all depends on how you want to look at it and how you want to parcel it. Because if you take Frederick Douglass, for instance, doing slavery, his mother was slave. Well, he was a slave too, but his master's wife was teaching him how to read and write. He was a houseboy until one day when his master got off work early, left his office, and came home. When he walked in the house, he heard his wife teaching Frederick Douglass reading and writing, and he went in there and blew up at her.
And was she a Republican or a Democrat?
She was whatever he wanted her to be. Back in those days, women didn't have no rights.
Well, was the
That's
slave owner a Republican or a Democrat?
obviously they was whatever they professed themselves to be at that time because they didn't have a two party system
Mm-hmm.
like they have now. So what he did was tell her educated nigger is a dangerous nigger, so don't ever let me catch you teaching him reading and writing no more.
And was that
That's
for political reasons or was it just because?
that was for economic reasons because that was slavery was all about economics.
Mm-hmm.
Slavery was the economic system during that time, and
Well, we could
so
agree to that. Yes, we are black people who are taken advantage of mainly because we are poor.
do what?
We are taken advantage of because the main reason is we are poor people as a group.
No, no. Taken advantage of because she was poor. You was taken advantage of because you was in slavery. You was in captive.
Right.
And and and
And
and,
what
and,
do or were slaves rich?
no, the reason why you was taken advantage of, first of all, is because once you was brought here on the slave ship, they had tried everything else. They had tried to enslave the Indians. They killed a bunch of them and turned them into what they call savages. They tried Mexicans. They couldn't do that, and then they ended up taking half of the Texas and California, the territory, calling it uh, the United States, which was Mexico back in those days. And then they tried the white people from England and around the poor classes of white people that they was bringing over as indentured servants to do this work that the slaves was doing. So
Right.
and they was actually lazy people and didn't have the work ethics.
I wouldn't
So
necessarily call them lazy, Popo, because you can't be lazy when you don't have knowledge of how to.
well, I'm telling you how it lined up.
I
So
understand how
when they
things
was
work.
sailing down the west coast of Africa, and they seen this these people with no infrastructure, and they was carrying their goods to market on their back in donkeys
Well,
and stuff.
Popo, I'd have to stop you there because now we're getting into feebles and tales, and we're getting off of the line of politics.
No, we're not because I'm explaining why the black was put in the position they was in. And it wasn't because they was lazy and poor. They was they was brought here to work because one thing they couldn't do what the rest of the people did. They couldn't go back to Canada. Canada
Hmm.
was not their country. They couldn't go back to Mexico. Mexico was not their country. They had an ocean between them. They couldn't run nowhere. They had nowhere to run to.
Well, yes, we did, Grandfather. We were actually peoples among here, like the people who are our ancestry. Not only did they come from Africa, but there were already black indigenous people to this land.
I know it was black people here 1,000 years ago.
We intermingled and migrated with them. Now they would call themselves and classify as Native Americans, but we already know a lot of the tribes from the Native Americans were annexed because they were deemed the not civilized tribes, so they were usually the black ones. And we know that the United States government
Who was not being
disenfranchised them that
civilized?
way.
Who
Well,
was not being
grandfather, there's Indian treaties where the Indians who partook in the slave trade and actually fought on behalf of the South in the Civil War, who had black people enslaved, were told that they had to accept and absorb them into the tribes and give them standing within the tribes. But then they also later gave them benefits for kicking them out. That's how you get your $5 Indians and all that. But I'm not talking
No,
about those.
no. That's not so. But
Understandable, but
it,
I'm not just guessing.
anyway,
Politically, we're aligning. Well, let's get on with the conversation though. But so what would you say are your personal voting priorities? Like, what are the reasons that your vote gets cast?
What is the reason for what now?
Like, what are your priorities? What are your priorities for voting? Like, what does the candidate have to say that they support or do, excuse me, don't support in order for you to get or not receive their support?
Well, my candidate does not support separating children from their parents. It does not support sending people back from the border and not allowing them to apply for citizenship.
Okay, so your main priority would be immigration. Hello.
Can't get the insurance. My candidate has love and compassion for humanity.
So
My candidate is not concerned about just a few people. My candidate is concerned about the people as a whole. My candidate is not concerned about giving somebody a tax cut. For one thing that you know for sure, if you have any economic wits about you at all, you know any person that's concerned about taxes has something to pay taxes on. A person that doesn't have a job don't care a lick about taxes because you don't have that no taxes. No money to buy food, there's no pay taxes. A person that's complaining about paying taxes is the one that has the taxes and has the money to pay the taxes. The ones that's got is the one that doesn't want to give. That's the whole thing. And the way I see it, the ones that I vote for, they in charge of it and they don't mind helping, but they have to help the whole. That's why the whole doesn't get a whole lot because you're helping everybody. In the Republican Party, the small amount that they are helping gets a whole lot because they're not helping everybody.
okay, so would you say that your voting priorities would be to help other groups of people, say immigrants, because your majority stated immigrant purposes because they.
Well, because the majority of the people in this country, with the exception of the Indians, are immigrants. So you're helping the people as a whole. You don't have to
So, do you
specify
consider black
immigrant.
people to be immigrants in America, even though our ancestry
They
begins in
are
the landmass that we
they are
founded
they
and
are
created that
immigrants.
matured into America?
They are immigrants in so much as they was brought here forcefully,
But they
and
were not brought here if they migrated on an independent basis.
some migrated.
I'm sorry, your phone is cutting out again.
See, the some here 1,000 years ago.
I'm sorry, grandfather. You have to start it over. Your phone cut out again, so we kind of missed a little bit of your statement.
About the blacks being immigrants.
No, what I'm saying is because not all black people. There were black people on the landmass that was developed into America before it was called America. Because the guy that is founded, who gives the credit for founding America, Christopher Columbus, was guided to this landmass by the Moors. When we already know that the term Moor means black person in old English, and so being that there were already a black seafaring people who've had established governments, because we utilize their current government system now because it was the Seminole Indians, and our Dr. James Smalls teaches us that the Seminole Indians were actually the Gullah and Geechee people, which were black, dark-skinned people who migrated from Africa on their own accord because they transferred and did business and commerce throughout the world nation, because there before slavery there was also a world trade.
The Gullah Geechee peoples is well and good today. They are. So go ahead and do what you got to do.
All right. Well, Papa, since you're having, we're gonna let your phone charge up, and we'll continue this conversation at a later moment.
Okay.
All right. This is the Dred Scott podcast.